mean, I don't know what to say. Like, the hype behind this game was super real, and I mean, it was. I didn't even know about this game, to be honest with you, until maybe 2 weeks to a month before it dropped. And I mean, all of a sudden, this game just comes out of nowhere, and all I hear is just this great stuff and how it's, you know, it rivals Dark Souls, and it's this fantastic story, and it's this, you know, beautiful game. All that stuff was true. Like, again, I wouldn't say that it rivals Dark Souls. This is more like God of War type fighting to me, where again you have the button combos, not so much the you know, the block and attack type stuff like Dark Souls. But I get where they're coming from, you know, because you die and you resurrect at these keeper shrines. But you don't lose anything for death, you know. So that's what separates Dark Souls and Elden Ring and you know, Sekiro and Bloodborne and Demon Souls. That's what separates this from FromSoft, right? Like there's a what could be a huge penalty for death in those games, and there is no penalty really, other than you have to, you know, kind of, you know, start back at the next checkpoint. So you know, in that instance, it's not really as difficult. Not to say that the fights weren't difficult. We did pretty well right up until about chapter 6, and then all of a sudden the bosses kind of got you know, they started kind of bringing it a little bit. And you know, that last fight with the Great Sage was unreal. Like, that was a very, very good, very fun fight. Now I think you do it in steps, because I believe when I first took him on, he did this point where he turned himself into a rock character, and then he split himself into 2 rock characters, and he had to fight those guys. Now we did have that second one, and a couple of times after that, you know, he did kind of split himself off into 2, but that second body didn't stay. It was more like an attack that he did with a second like illusion, if you will. But you know, it really kind of forces you to know how to play the game, because I kept getting stuck on. I'd be in the middle of a combo attack, and you can't cancel combos. So I do have a couple of, you know, little minor irks and twerks here. Not being able to cancel out of a combo drives me crazy, you know. Like, I mean, you would think that this guy who's supposed to be, you know, this godlike warrior, you would think that he would be able to stop twirling a staff and jump out of the way, you know. But you know, again, that's those limitations on your attack and your dodge and your defense and everything. That's what gives the game difficulty, right? That's the point of the game. And so, you know, I just like to hit buttons and just fucking go at it, right? So I had to learn to kind of chill myself out and you know, take a couple of shots, dodge, take a couple of shots, dodge, take a couple of shots, dodge, and then recognize when I have those opportunities to do a heavy attack or go in for the kill type of stuff. But the transformations are really cool. There's a whole bunch of them. The spells are dope. My 2 favorite were obviously Cloud Step is probably my favorite, and then Immobilize was probably the most helpful. But you know, again, once you get into the later levels, these bosses, they counteract that kind of stuff. So, you know, I wasn't able to use Immobilize on the Great Sage. I can't really use it on Erlang either, you know, because they find ways to get around it. And then some of the base combos don't work either, because they know it's coming and they can dodge it and stuff. So it's a great progression in story, where it kind of lets you win a little bit to build your confidence. Then it kind of takes a little step kind of towards the middle, where it's more, okay, now I really gotta, you know, figure out how to use these spells and how to use my transformations and how to use these spirits to help me out. You know, different spirits and different vessels help you in different ways. They work more efficiently on some enemies than they do on others. And so you kind of have to start figuring out the game, you know. And then you get to the end, and it's like, all right, man, training wheels are off. Have at it, Haas. Good fucking luck. And so I think the progression of the story was very, very good. The story itself, you know, the lore behind this game, I didn't know much about Journey to the West. You know, again, it's a Chinese myth. I have a few Chinese friends, but none of them like talk about mythology, because they're not really religious. You know what I mean? They're a Buddhist country, but you know, Buddha was a real person. So, you know, they're not rooted in mythology like a Christian nation or a Hindu nation or a, you know, like a Muslim nation, right? And so these stories don't tend to get passed down like it would if this was, you know, like a Roman story. And so, you know, the most I had ever heard of Journey to the West is, you know, my wife had seen the cartoon or the anime or whatever they want, and you know, she really enjoyed the story. So we watched, you know, some history on it and everything, and it's a very interesting story if you follow Sun Wukong's journey. You know, you have this guy who awakens, right, and then he wants to defend his monkey clan, and so he teaches himself to be a warrior, and then he wants to protect the jungle, and so he becomes better and better and better and more enlightened and more enlightened and more enlightened, to the point where even Buddha has to recognize his deification, right? And he earns his Buddhahood. He becomes part of the High Council, and then the rest of the High Council disrespects him, and so he becomes rebellious, and he gets banished into this stone, and that's how the journey starts, right? Well, this one, you know, you're not really Sun Wukong. You're just kind of following in his footsteps as, you know, like a reincarnation, if you will, and so you hear about the story of him as you adventure through these enemies. Lo and behold, they're all former friends of Sun Wukong who have been corrupted with power, and you have to you know, bring them back to Earth, so to speak. Very fascinating story, but not, you know, it's not to the point where it's like overly complicated or, you know, just vague. like a FromSoft game, right? You know, the part of the beauty of the FromSoft lore is there's so much going on, and there's so many different things that connect this and connect that and connect this and connect that, but there's nothing that directly ties anything together. So you can make up your own stories, you know, you make up your own mythology behind it. Whereas this one's kind of like, here's the story, you know, but it's mostly about this guy's journey. And so I really appreciated it because it wasn't, you know, it doesn't bog you down once you get into that kind of thing. The music was great. The levels were fantastic. Like, I mean, when you're down in the webbed hollow, it looks like you're literally in a fucking spider's web. It was beautiful. Some of the spots where you've got like cocoons that attack you, and so you have to use some of your spells to get around that kind of stuff. It very well put together game by Game Science, and you know, I've said this all along. Still probably not my choice for Game of the Year. It's probably not what I would have picked. I definitely wouldn't have picked Astrobot. Now, I haven't played it. Maybe it's the greatest game I've never played. But it was definitely between this and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, in my opinion. And this is, you know, this is great, in my opinion. But there was just something about Rebirth and how it kind of reinvented an old favorite of mine, and maybe that's, you know, more of what it is, where it's trying to reinvent a genre, right? You have your traditional Japanese RPG where you take turns and whatnot, attacking and using spells and stuff, and then it flips it on its feet and makes it an action adventure. And it, you know, again, it comes from one of my favorite games, if not my favorite game of all time, the original Final Fantasy VII. So maybe there's some nostalgia, maybe there's some love for the Final Fantasy franchise that kind of, you know, gives me a little bit of a bias. But in my opinion, I don't think I wouldn't have had a problem with this winning Game of the Year. I think it definitely deserved it more than a lot of the ones that were nominated. I think this is number 2 for me still. Although I'm very, very glad I played it when I played it. Yeah, you know, this is not one that I would have been very disappointed in myself had I waited until like next year to get into this, because this was absolutely phenomenal, and being able to play it while, you know, the hype is still real, because it's not very often that you know, that you have a game that comes out with as much hype as this did, and it actually lives up to that hype. So very, very well done by Game Science. I have no idea if they intend any DLC or if maybe there's going to be a sequel to the game or not. But I'm very interested in the company now, and I look forward to their next project. be it Black Myth 2 or a new IP, because they did a fantastic job. 2 huge thumbs up, and I highly recommend it. If now I'm playing on PS5. I think it's also available on PC. Not sure about Xbox, but if you have a PlayStation or a PC and you're looking for a good game to play, I definitely recommend this one. I definitely recommend this. It was great.